Hey there, my name is Savannah Abney, and this is the Afinida Insurance podcast. We're starting a brand new series today, the Asked and Answered series. This is going to run through next year. We have so many topics to cover, but every month we're going to cover one specific topic in the insurance space, and we're going to cover the main questions we get in that topic every single month. This month, we're covering all things commercial insurance, and I'm joined by our insurance experts. I have Alyssa Wilcox here, Kimberly Morales, Victoria Cowart, our Afinida Insurance experts. They are going to be able to help us understand commercial insurance in a really simple and easy way. So you can listen to this on your commute, watch it really quickly while you're on the treadmill, and get the lowdown on commercial insurance that you need to run your business well. So we're going to get started. Okay, first question that we get really frequently around here, and I'm going to actually pose this to Alyssa first. Should my small business have business income insurance? Tell us all the things, Alyssa.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely want to have business income insurance. And the reason is if you have a claim, you still have expenses that you're going to need to cover. This includes your rent for any locations that you occupy. Your landlord's still going to want to have rent paid. If you have key employees that you want to keep, on the available for work when everything is finalized, you're going to want to be able to pay them. So this loss of income is going to help to keep your business running while you are working with the carrier to mitigate the claim, whether it's a property claim, say there was a fire in your restaurant, or um, you know, something of that nature. You want to keep your business going, you want to be able to continue to pay your bills, and you don't want to have to go out of pocket for that. It's one of the most overlooked types of insurance, and one of the most important, especially for folks who operate out of a brick and mortar location.
So I was going to ask you, do most standard, just like business owner policies, have income insurance? Or are they usually add-ons? You said they're really overlooked. So I'm curious kind of how that all comes together.
So it depends on the type of policy you have. If you have a business owner's policy with a standard carrier like the Hartford or Liberty Mutual, oftentimes that is part of the package that they build, which is why we love those those packaged policies. But if you're with a carrier that is maybe less standard and doesn't have all of the bells and whistles included for coverage, you may need to add that on, and it may require additional premium. So it's really important to go through all of the coverages that are included on your policy and make sure that that's on there. The business income is an aspect of the property coverage. So if you don't have property coverage, you will not have that business income coverage.
When a business owner is maybe like grappling with, and obviously you want to pay as little as you have to for coverage. Like you want to get the coverage you need, but you don't want to pay too much for it. Um, how do you kind of have that conversation of what that should look like specific to income insurance? Like how much you should be paying for that? Not necessarily a specific number, but like the ROI around that. Obviously, it's kind of critical for brick and mortar you mentioned, but how do you sort of have that conversation with people who aren't sure that's really necessary?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if you are a solopreneur working from your home office, business income insurance is going to be less important, because if your home burns down, let's say maybe you lose your computer, a printer, your phone, these are things that are, pretty relatively easy to replace. Certainly you can, once you have your computer, you can start working again. And if it's a home office, you're going to have a place to live as well. So it's less important there. And I think the bigger importance is just working with those folks that lease a brick and mortar location, looking at your rent. I mean, that right there is probably one of the biggest expenses that you will have. And so if you can't do business out of your location, how will you pay for rent? Do you have the savings to make up for those losses to keep that location and your lease requirements going? Do you have key employees? Say you've found the most amazing person, you've trained them, it's taken years, and then all of a sudden disaster strikes and, you know, they can't come to work because you can't open. Or will you have the money to continue to pay them so that they don't have to go and find another job? Um, you know, think, thinking about those sort of investments, and what the cost is associated with that.
Good stuff. Okay. Number two of some of the most common questions we get in commercial insurance: does my business need employment practices liability? Victoria, I'm gonna let you take this one.
Yes, it does. So what this covers is this is coverage for the employer, and it covers a lot of claims that employees can bring against them. And the most common are usually allegations of harassment, wrongful termination, or discrimination against, we've got gender, disability, race, and this can really help protect employers because it's a pretty common occurrence that if you let someone go, an employee can get really angry and try and bring a lawsuit against you and make it seem like you didn't do this the correct way, you didn't follow the law to a T. And this can really bring in a lot of money in claims if you don't have that coverage to protect you and your business.
Absolutely, 100%. It's pretty clear. It's essential. You need it.
Yes.
Protect
Yes.
yourself and give yourself the cushion that if you really need to do something for your business and this person really does not belong on your team anymore, you can do what you need to do. And no matter how they act, how they react, you know that you're protected no matter what action they take next.
Exactly. So I would say it's an essential coverage for a business owner to have if they have employees.
Awesome. All right. Number three, we're going to head back to Alyssa. What is hired and non-owned auto liability insurance?
So this is another one of those coverages that we can package in on your BOP or your your general liability policy, but essentially it covers the business for use of vehicles that are personally owned. So if you are a business owner, say you have a small brick and mortar retail shop and you need to run down the street and pick up some supplies for your store, you're using your personally owned vehicle, but you are doing work for the business. And so if you are in an accident using your personally owned vehicle and you say you hit a McDonald's and McDonald's finds out that you were doing work for your business, they could bring a lawsuit against your business. And so the hired and non-owned auto covers your business for lawsuits that would be brought against you for the use of your personal vehicle. You'll still keep your personal auto insurance to cover the vehicle itself, but this just gives a layer of protection for the business so that any accidents, because accidents happen, they're out of our control most times, but if an accident does happen, that the business is covered and won't have to go out of pocket for any claims.
So I think this would make make it easier on the business in a lot of ways because you know that you can, ask an employee to run out and do something in their own personal vehicle and you don't have to worry like what could happen if they're doing, work for the business in a personal vehicle. If something happens, the business is still covered. Kind of makes it easier where it's not like I have to now issue commercial vehicles. Everybody has to have a business car, everybody has to have, a company car, whatever. We can use things that are a little bit more, the cash flow of that is a little bit easier, but we know we have that protection as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like I said, this is an endorsement that you can add on to a BOP or a general liability policy so that it's pretty affordable. It's relatively affordable. And, commercial auto policies can be very expensive and require you to own a vehicle. So this is sort of a way to save some money and still make sure you're properly covered.
Awesome. All right, number 4. What is the difference between general liability and professional liability? Victoria, we'll let you hit this one.
So general liability typically covers claims that arise out of injuries or damage that your business has caused to someone's property or bodily injury. There's also personal injury, such as slander. And then you have professional liability, which tends to cover things like personal injury, but it's more so out of services you provide. Think medical malpractice, like doctors. You've got consulting, and the difference between them is think of if you're a contractor and you build something, and say you build this beautiful structure in a house and it falls down, it injures someone. General liability would cover that, versus if you were doing like financial consulting and you gave someone really horrible advice, which resulted in a financial loss, they could come after you, and that would go after your professional services, which would be covered by your professional liability. So that's the big difference in there, and I think people get really confused. So you really want to think of general liability more in like physical terms, and professional liability more in intangible terms.
General is something physically actually happened that caused a problem. Professional is it was something from your brain that was given.
Pretty much that's how you can think of it.
Intangible.
It's professional liability. It's just thinking of you could be sued for something you did or something you should have done. Whereas general liability, like I said, you're more so like someone's in your place of business and you don't keep a good shop and they slip and fall in there, it would cover that.
Got it. I know we just had you answer this one, but Alyssa has already made it clear that she wants you to answer the next one because you're the expert on this one. So for our fifth question, what is New York State short-term disability insurance? This is very specific and very specific to one state, but it's very common because we have people in that state that ask this question a lot.
Yes. So if you are an employer in the state of New York with at least one employee, you are required to have New York State's disability and paid family leave coverage. Now, it's a little different. It does kind of, some people think it ties in with workers' compensation, but it's actually totally different. So this coverage is to cover you for illness or injury that happens outside of work, but prevents you from being able to go back to work. And it also includes pregnancy and a birth of a baby. That still falls under the disability side. And then on the paid family leave side, that covers things like maternity and paternity leave. There's the caregiver coverage. So if you have a family member that's extremely ill and you're the only person that's able to take care of them, this would apply coverage and pay a percentage of your wages to you. And then there is also the portion of the paid family leave of the New York disability that covers if you have a military member family or you yourself, and all of a sudden they've called up and they're like, you've got to go, you're being deployed, it will actually give you coverage to take leave from work so that you can help them get ready, say your goodbyes, and really just get all the ducks in a row for that.
So specific to the injury piece, I feel like this might be the most common thing that maybe comes up when you said it's an injury that happens outside of work but prevents you from going to work. So I assume an example would be you get into a car accident. Has nothing to do with work, but you're so injured you can't get back to work. And that's where it really differentiates itself from workers' comp, because it's not actually in the workplace that the injury happened.
Yes, and it is a great coverage, and I think it's really great that the state imposes this law, because there are, unforeseeable things that happen outside of work that prevent you from being able to do your job, and having that coverage kind of gives you that safety net to have some type of income coming while you get yourself back on your feet so you're able to go back to work.
Is there any advice to employers? Obviously, it's a requirement if you're in that state. I mean, it's a law. Yes. But is there any suggestions on how to navigate it properly, how to make sure you're in compliance, that you're taking care of your employees in the right way, and also staying, compliant with government regulations?
I would find a great insurance agent. That would be my advice to you, and they will help you find the coverage. You can go directly through the state, or there are other great companies that we work with that do provide all of the workplace safety information, and they provide all of the information that tells everyone what are you covered for when you do get injured or ill off the job. We work with really great carriers, so I would suggest that you just find a great agent that knows what they're doing, knows how to work with the carriers, and they'll really guide you from there.
All right, back to Alyssa. This is our sixth question. How is a business owner's policy, a BOP, better known as, different from general liability?
Yeah, so we've talked about business owners' policies a little bit already, but I think the biggest difference is that a BOP is going to be able to package together multiple lines of coverage under one policy so that it covers your business. You don't have to manage multiple policies. You have everything in one place. One of the first coverage items on a BOP is the general liability. So Victoria talked about this a little bit. General liabilities are going to cover you for like physical damage, accidents that happen on location, whether it be bodily injury or property damage. So first thing, BOP does have that general liability. So on that, in that regard, they are the same, but then you can add on property. Say you own the building, well, we can put the building on there. Inside, everything that is not attached, that you've brought in, your business personal property, we can include that for coverage. Hired a non-owned auto so that when you are running errands for your business, you're covered. We can even add in an umbrella coverage. We were reviewing a policy earlier today that included the umbrella, all on that same business owner's policy. If you're a restaurant or or a bar, we can also include in that liquor liability. So think of the business owner's policy, that BOP, as being sort of the one policy that includes all of the bells and whistles, all of the coverage items that you will need as a business owner. It's kind of comparable to your homeowner's policy, right? It's like the one policy you get when you own a home. Well, the business owner's policy is the one policy you get when you own a business, and it just encompasses everything. And one thing too is typically all insurance policies are customizable. So if there's an aspect of your business that isn't included, there are enhancements, there are endorsements available that we can add to really make sure that it's meeting your business needs.
All I heard was liquor liability, and that made me chuckle because I've never heard of that. But that makes sense. And if you're a restaurant or bar, I'm sure that would be a very
Yeah.
helpful liability to have.
When people drink, they do things they, necessarily shouldn't. So it's good to cover yourself from that.
No doubt. Okay, last but not least, this is of the most common commercial insurance questions we get. Victoria, I'm going to pass it to you. What is covered on a commercial general liability insurance policy?
We've touched on it throughout this, podcast that we're doing, but to really circle back to it, a commercial general liability policy helps to cover you and your business from damage you may cause to someone else's property. So, just think again back to that contractor example. Imagine you bring in a painter and your employee painted the house and he's washing his brushes and he forgets to turn your water off, and all of a sudden they've flooded your home. Your general liability can cover that. It covers bodily injury, like I mentioned, slip and falls on your business property. It can also cover advertising injury and libel and slander. And what this really covers when there is a claim is people don't really think about, they think about medical costs usually on a claim, but they're not thinking about attorney and defense costs, judgments and settlements. There's a lot more that goes into settling a claim than just medical payments. There are so many moving wheels, especially on big claims and even on small claims too. So I think it really is such a great cushion for businesses to have, because like I said, you're not thinking about that. You're usually thinking in terms of like a car accident. Okay, we've got the car and we've got the medical bills. But I mean, like I said, attorneys get brought in, and depending on the claim, you don't know how much you're paying in legal fees and costs. So this really does help protect you with that, because it could not just ruin your business, it could ruin you personally in a financial matter. So
Yeah.
it's number one.
Yeah. Great stuff here. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of our Asked and Answered series on the Afinida Insurance podcast. If you have any questions for our incredible team, you can reach out to us. All of the information will be in the description box below, links to our site, contact info, all that kind of good stuff. And we look forward for you to join us at the next episode.